used to believe that nothing in the world could ever shake the bond between a mother and her child. But the truth, sometimes love gets tested in ways you'd never imagine. It began quietly, so quietly that I almost missed it. My husband, George, passed away 2 years ago after a short battle with lung cancer. We built a comfortable life together, a paid-off house in the suburbs, a tidy investment portfolio, and a retirement plan that meant I'd never have to worry about bills again. Our only son, Daniel, was 27. Smart, charming, and always running after something bigger. Ever since college, he'd been chasing startups, crypto trends, side hustles, anything that promised quick success. At first, I admired his drive. Then I started noticing the way his tone changed when we talked about money. One Sunday afternoon, he dropped by for lunch. The house smelled of baked lasagna and garlic bread, his favorite since childhood. He kissed my cheek. "Hey, Mom, smells amazing." We sat at the table, talking about nothing and everything. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "You know, Mom, this house is a bit much for you now, isn't it? You could sell it, get a condo closer to downtown. Use the extra money to invest. I could help manage it for you." The words were innocent on the surface, but something about them made me uneasy. His eyes gleamed, not with care, but calculation. I laughed softly to hide my discomfort. "I'm fine here, sweetheart. This house feels like your father's memory." He shrugged, stabbing his fork into his lasagna. "Just saying, Mom, you're sitting on a gold mine." That night, I couldn't sleep. The phrase echoed in my mind, "You're sitting on a gold mine." Was I, or was he? Weeks passed, and his subtle hints turned into suggestions. Suggestions became requests. "Mom, if you put even half that savings into my company, we could double it in a year." "Mom, maybe you should make me your power of attorney, just in case something happens." At first, I brushed it off as eagerness, maybe even immaturity. But deep down, an uncomfortable question began to bloom. Would Daniel still visit me if I had nothing? The thought terrified me. I'd raised him to be kind, generous, loving. I'd stayed up through sleepless nights, worked 2 jobs to afford his education. I'd been there when he scraped his knees, when he failed exams, when his heart broke for the first time. And now, in his adulthood, I was beginning to wonder, had I raised a son or a stranger wearing my son's smile? The idea of testing him came late one night as I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the empty teacup beside me. The moonlight spilled across the table, highlighting the framed photo of Daniel at age 10, missing front teeth, arms around our golden retriever, laughing without a care in the world. "Where did that boy go?" I whispered to the quiet room. The next morning, I called Mr. Benson, our family lawyer and an old friend of George S. When I told him my plan, he nearly dropped his pen. "You're going to tell your son you've lost everything," he repeated, brows knitting together. "Yes," I said, steadying my voice. "I want to see how he reacts, whether he'll stand by me or vanish." He leaned back in his chair. "Margaret, that's risky. What if he gets angry, or feels betrayed when you tell him the truth later?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Then I'll know where we really stand," he sighed, rubbing his temples. "You always were stubborn, just be careful. Tests like that reveal things you can't unsee." That evening, I sat at my dining table rehearsing lines like an actress preparing for a cruel play. How do you tell your child that the life you built together has vanished? When I finally texted him, "Can you come over tomorrow? It's urgent." His reply came instantly. "Sure, Mom, everything okay?" I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "We'll talk tomorrow." My heart pounded. I felt sick, deceitful, but I couldn't stop now. I needed the truth more than comfort. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, nerves buzzing like static. I cooked breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, and his favorite coffee, hazelnut roast. My hands trembled the entire time. At exactly 10 a.m., his car pulled into the driveway, a shiny black BMW he'd bought last year, financed on a whim. He walked in, smiling, phone in hand. "Hey, Mom, what's up? You sounded serious last night." I forced a weak smile. "Sit down, sweetheart, we need to talk." The instant I said it, the smile faded from his face. He put down his phone. "You're scaring me. What happened?" I took a deep breath and began my performance. "Daniel, I made a mistake, a terrible one. I invested most of the savings with a company that went bankrupt. Everything, your father's investments, my retirement fund, it's all gone." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke me. He blinked. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "I mean we've lost it, all of it." He leaned back, rubbing his chin. "So, like, how bad is it exactly? Are we talking half, a quarter?" My throat tightened. "All of it." He stared at me for a long moment, then exhaled sharply. "Wow, that's rough." I don't even know what to say. I waited, I wanted him to reach across the table to take my hand to say, "Don't worry, Mom, we'll figure it out." Instead, he said quietly, "So what are you going to do now?" I swallowed hard. "I might have to sell the house, maybe rent something small, I'll manage somehow." He frowned, shifting uncomfortably. "Yeah, housing prices are crazy right now. You might get a good deal, though." That was it. No hug, no offer to help. Just financial commentary like he was reading market news. I forced a nod. "Maybe." After a few minutes of awkward silence, he stood. "I have to get to a meeting, but let me know if you need advice on the sale, okay?" "Of course," I murmured. He kissed my cheek absently, already scrolling on his phone. Then he left. The sound of the door closing was louder than any argument we'd ever had. I sat there, motionless, listening to the ticking of the kitchen clock. Every second seemed to mock me. I'd gotten my answer, but it wasn't the one I'd hoped for. Tears blurred my vision as I looked again at the photo on the wall. Daniel at 10 years old, holding that golden retriever. Back then, I never doubted his love. Now I couldn't even recognize the man who just walked out. I whispered into the quiet. Maybe I didn't lose my money, maybe I lost my son. If your child reacted like that, what would you do next? Would you tell them the truth or keep the test going? Comment below, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. After Daniel left that morning, the house felt emptier than ever. No sound, no movement, just the faint ticking of the wall clock and the echo of his shoes fading down the driveway. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the cold coffee in front of me. I had expected at least something. A hug, a word of comfort, but all I got was distance. Still, a small part of me tried to defend him. Maybe he was just shocked. Maybe he needed time to process it. He'd always been logical, not the emotional type. Maybe he was going to call later and apologize, so I waited. That day passed. Then the next. Nothing, no call, no message. By the third day, my phone finally lit up with his name. For a moment, I felt my heart lift. Maybe this was it. Maybe he'd come around. I answered quickly. "Hi, sweetheart." His tone was casual, too casual. "Hey, Mom, I've been thinking about what you said the other day." I held my breath, waiting. "You know," he continued, "you could move in with me for a bit. My apartment's small, but it'd save you rent money. You could sell the house, maybe use the money to help cover utilities and food, and we'd both benefit. What do you think?" The hope I'd been clinging to shattered. There it was again, money. Even now, when I'd supposedly lost everything, his mind went straight to what's left. I kept my voice steady. "You think that's best?" "Yeah," he said quickly. "You'll be less lonely too. And you know, if we pool resources, things will be easier for both of us." For both of us. Not for me. Not for his mother who had supposedly lost her savings. For him too. I smiled sadly. "That's kind of you, Daniel. I'll think about it." "Good," he said, sounding relieved. "Let me know soon, though. Rent's going up next month, so the sooner we sort things out, the better." He hung up soon after. "No, I love you. No, we'll get through this. Just logistics." That night, I cried. Not quiet tears, the kind that come from a deep, hollow place. I felt betrayed, not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't. All I'd wanted was reassurance. All I'd needed was proof that love meant more to him than money. And yet, here I was, alone, pretending to be broke, and realizing that maybe the lie wasn't the cruelest part, the truth was. 2 days later, I had an unexpected visitor. The doorbell rang around noon. I opened the door to find Mrs. Garcia, our old neighbor, standing there with a warm smile and a bag of groceries. "Margaret, I haven't seen you in weeks. I thought I'd stop by. How are you holding up?" I tried to fake a smile, but my voice trembled. "I've been better, Maria." She placed the grocery bag on my counter and turned to me. "You look pale. What's wrong?" I hesitated. I wasn't sure if I wanted to share my fabricated story, but I did. "I made a bad investment. Lost most of my savings. I might have to sell the house soon." Her eyes widened. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. That's awful." And then she said something I didn't expect. "If you need a place to stay, you know my guest room's always open. You and I will figure things out. You've always been there for me. It's my turn." Her words hit harder than Daniel's ever could. Here was someone who owed me nothing, offering me kindness and safety. And my own son, my blood, was offering conditions. I thanked her and assured her I'd be okay, but the moment she left, I sat on the couch and cried again. Not for the fake loss, but for the real one, the emotional distance between me and my son. A week passed. Daniel didn't visit once. Then one morning, my phone buzzed with a message. "Daniel. Hey, Mom, have you thought about selling yet? The market's hot. If you want, I can help you list it." I stared at the text, my hands trembling. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't check if I'd eaten, if I was coping. He just wanted to list the house. I didn't reply right away. I needed time to think. And then I remembered something my husband once said before he passed. "People show their true colors when money's on the table, but they also show who they are when there's none." It echoed in my mind all afternoon. That's when an idea started to form, a small, dangerous spark. If Daniel was only after what I had, maybe I needed to show him what he'd lose. That evening, I sat at my desk and pulled out a box of papers, bank statements, the property deed, the will George and I had written years ago. Daniel didn't know it, but the investments weren't in my name anymore. After George's passing, I'd transferred most of our assets into a private trust, one that would only release funds under specific conditions. Mr. Benson had helped me set it up quietly. At the time, it was just a safety measure, but now it felt like fate. If Daniel failed this test completely, I would change the will. He wouldn't get a single cent, it hurt even to think it. But sometimes love means facing painful truths. 2 days later, I texted him again. "I've decided to sell the house, Daniel. Could you come over and help me go through some papers?" He replied instantly. "Of course, I'll be there this afternoon." For the first time in weeks, I smiled, because now the real test would begin. When he arrived, he was cheerful, upbeat, and oddly eager. "Hey, Mom, you're doing the right thing. Fresh start, right?" I gestured to the papers on the dining table. "Can you help me organize these before we call the realtor?" He nodded, flipping through the folders, scanning every line like a hawk. "Wow, so you really lost everything, huh? All the stocks gone?" "Yes," I said softly. "It's all gone." He whistled. "Crazy. You know, Mom, you probably should have asked me before investing. I could have helped you avoid this mess." I bit my tongue. "I suppose so." Then he found the envelope marked trust deed, one I'd left there intentionally. His eyes narrowed. "What's this?" I feigned confusion. "Oh, just something from Mr. Benson, nothing important." He opened it anyway, his expression tightening as he scanned the document. "Wait, this says you transferred assets to a trust. What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled faintly. "Just a safety plan your father and I made. But since the investments are gone, it doesn't matter anymore." He folded the paper carefully, but I caught the flicker of greed in his eyes. He was thinking, calculating. That's when I knew I hadn't gotten my answer yet, but I would soon. That night after he left again, I called Mr. Benson. "It's time," I said quietly. "Draw up the amendment to the will, but don't finalize it yet. I need to see how far he'll go." There was a long pause on the line. "Margaret," he said softly, "you're walking a dangerous road." "I know," I whispered. "But sometimes the truth needs a little help to show itself." Would you have stopped the test here, or would you keep going like I did? Comment below. I want to know, do you think I'm being cruel or just cautious? When you lie long enough, the line between truth and fiction starts to blur. It had been nearly 3 weeks since I told Daniel I'd lost everything. 3 weeks of watching my son drift further away from the boy I'd raised, and closer to the kind of man I didn't recognize. Each time I thought about stopping the test, about confessing the truth, I reminded myself, no, not yet. If he could still look me in the eye and see only a wallet, then I needed to know just how deep that greed went. But the longer I waited, the lonelier it got. One gray morning, I decided to walk to the local bakery for some air. It was drizzling light enough to make the pavement shine, but steady enough to chill my bones. That's when I saw her again, Mrs. Garcia, standing by the cafe window, waving me over. She was holding a steaming cup of coffee in each hand. "Margaret, I was hoping I'd run into you." Her warmth felt like sunlight after a long winter. I hadn't realized how much I needed it until that moment. We sat down at a corner table and she slid one cup toward me. "You look tired. You've lost weight." I smiled weakly. "Stress diet, I suppose." Her expression softened. "I can tell something's wrong, you don't have to pretend with me." So I told her, not the whole truth, just the lie I'd been living. "I made a bad investment, everything's gone, I might sell the house soon." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Oh, honey, I know what it's like to lose something you've worked your whole life for, but you're strong, you'll rebuild." I wanted to believe her. We chatted for a while, and she made me laugh, genuinely laugh, for the first time in days. Before I left, she pressed a folded piece of paper into my hand. "Just in case," she said. "It's my number and address. If you ever need a place to stay, no questions asked." I blinked back tears. "Maria, thank you," she smiled. "That's what neighbors are for." I walked home feeling lighter until I saw Daniel's car parked outside my house. He was pacing the porch, phone in hand, looking irritated. When he saw me, his expression shifted, not relief, not love, but annoyance. "Mom, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you." I held up the pastry bag. "Just out getting breakfast." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "You scared me. I thought maybe you'd fallen or something." I smiled faintly. "That's sweet." Then, as if on cue, his tone changed. So listen, I've been talking to a realtor. They said you could get a really good offer if you sell soon, like before winter. The market's cooling fast. I stared at him. You talked to a realtor without asking me. I was just helping, he said defensively. You're not good with this kind of stuff. I see. He pulled out his phone and showed me an email thread. He'd already contacted 3 agents, even attached photos of the house he'd taken without telling me. My stomach twisted. This wasn't help. This was control. Daniel, I said carefully, this house isn't for sale yet. You shouldn't be doing this. He frowned. Mom, you said you were broke. You need to sell it. I'm just trying to make sure you don't get scammed again. My voice went cold. I appreciate your concern, but this isn't your decision. He exhaled sharply, pocketing his phone. You're being stubborn. Fine, do what you want. He stormed off, muttering something about people who don't want help. The slam of the car door echoed through my chest long after he drove away. That night, I sat by the window, watching the rain return. I couldn't stop wondering if I had really lost everything, would he have treated me the same way? I already knew the answer. My hands trembled as I dialed Mr. Benson. Margaret, he answered, his tone weary. Please tell me you're not calling with bad news. I'm calling with a decision, I said. Draft the new will, Daniel gets nothing. There was a long pause. Are you sure? Yes, he sighed softly. You don't sound angry, you sound heartbroken. I am. The following weekend, I decided to visit the small charity center downtown where I sometimes volunteered. I thought maybe helping others would take my mind off my own mess. Inside, the place buzzed with quiet energy, people sorting clothes, handing out food packages, comforting strangers. That's when I met Hannah, a young woman maybe in her early 30s, folding donated blankets. She smiled at me like I'd been there yesterday. You're Mrs. Turner, right? I remember you from last year's food drive. I nodded. It's been a while. We started talking, and before I knew it, I was telling her bits of my story. She listened closely, her eyes soft with empathy. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I know it's hard when family changes. My dad left me out of his will completely after a fight. I thought money didn't matter, but it really reveals people. Her words struck a chord. Then she said something I'd never forget. Sometimes the people who should protect us are the first ones to test us. But sometimes that test exposes who we are too. I froze. Was I the one failing my own test? Was I pushing Daniel away to prove a point? I drove home with that thought gnawing at me. When I got there, the front door was slightly open. My heart jumped. I pushed it wide and froze. The lights were on. Papers were scattered across the living room floor. My desk drawer was open. I rushed inside, calling out, Daniel. No answer. Then I saw it in my folder of documents, the one marked trust deed lying open on the table. The trust paper was missing. My blood ran cold. I called his number. It rang twice before he answered, his voice too casual. Hey, Mom, everything okay? Daniel, I said slowly, were you here today? A pause. Then, yeah, I stopped by to check on you. You weren't home, so I just looked for the utility bills. The bills, I repeated. Yeah, you said something about overdue payments. I thought I'd help. I felt the lie in his voice, smooth, practiced, almost natural. I forced calm. Did you take anything from my desk? Another pause. Then, no, Mom, why would I do that? But I heard the faint rustle of paper on his end. Something inside me broke. That night, I sat alone in the dark living room, staring at the rain streaking down the windows. Maybe Mrs. Garcia's kindness had blinded me. Maybe Hannah's words had softened me. But as I looked around the home my husband and I built, the life we'd poured our hearts into, I made a silent vow. If Daniel wanted to play games with inheritance, he was about to find out what it felt like to lose everything for real. Because the next move would be mine. Sleep didn't visit me that night. I sat in my armchair until the clock struck 3 a.m., replaying every memory of Daniel I could recall, the scraped knees I bandaged, the graduation photo I'd framed, the promises he once made that he'd take care of me one day. Now, it seemed he only wanted to take from me. The missing trust paper gnawed at my thoughts. I couldn't stop imagining what he might do with it. And worst of all, he lied so easily, as if deceit had become second nature. By sunrise, I'd made up my mind. I would stop being passive. This wasn't just a test anymore. It was a war for truth. The first step was subtle. I called my lawyer, Mr. Benson, and asked him to reissue a duplicate trust deed with a minor adjustment. It would look real, but it would be a decoy, clearly invalid without a notarized seal. Then, I placed it back into the same drawer Daniel had searched before. If he came back, I'd know exactly what he was after. But something unexpected happened that afternoon. There was a knock at the door. When I opened it, the postman handed me a thick, cream-colored envelope. No return address, only my name written in neat block letters, Margaret Turner. I frowned. The handwriting was Daniel S. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper, and as I unfolded it, my breath caught in my throat. It read, Mrs. Turner, I don't know how to say this, but your son came to my office last week asking about the sale of your property. He claimed to have your authorization and showed me partial documents. Something felt off, so I didn't proceed. Please be careful who you trust. A concerned broker, I sat frozen. My fingers went cold around the letter. Daniel had already tried to sell my house. The walls around me seemed to close in. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just greed anymore, it was betrayal. My heart raced as I called the number at the bottom of the letter. A man answered, Mr. Blake, a real estate broker from a nearby firm. Yes, I sent that letter, he admitted. Your son was very convincing. He had copies of ownership documents, even used your signature. But when I asked for identification, he said you were too ill to handle details. That's when I knew something was wrong. I swallowed hard. Did he say why he wanted to sell it? He mentioned needing to secure medical funds for you, he said gently. I assumed he was helping. Until I checked public records and saw no medical debt under your name. I closed my eyes. The room felt smaller. My own son was trying to forge my signature to sell the house I still lived in. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just sat in silence, letting the shock drain from my body until only cold purpose remained. He wanted to see what would happen if I lost everything. Fine. I'd give him that illusion and make him live it. The next morning, I went to the bank. I withdrew the last of my visible funds, about $8,000, and moved the rest of my savings into a separate trust account under Benson's name, hidden from Daniel's access. Then I visited Mrs. Garcia. Maria, I said, clutching my purse tightly, I might need to take you up on your offer to stay at your place for a few days. Her face lit up with concern. Of course, dear, what's going on? I just need a little time away. Think of it as a small break. She nodded, not pressing further. I'll prepare the guest room. Before leaving my house, I carefully placed a few clues Daniel would find irresistible, the fake trust deed in the drawer, a note saying, meeting the bank tomorrow about the deed transfer, and an open laptop tab on a fake property sale agreement. If my instincts were right, he wouldn't resist the bait. I stayed at Maria's cottage by the lake that night. It was quiet, almost too quiet, except for the sound of crickets and the occasional splash of water against the dock. I sat by the window, staring at the moon's reflection on the lake's surface, wondering how everything had come to this. Where did I go wrong as a mother? Had I raised a boy who learned to value money more than love? Tears threatened, but I wiped them away. I was done being weak. Because this time, Daniel wouldn't be fooling me. He'd be walking right into his own trap. The following afternoon, I drove back to the house under the guise of retrieving documents. As I approached, I noticed something immediately. His car was parked in the driveway. I stayed in the car, watching quietly. Through the window, I saw him inside at my desk. He was rummaging again, his movements sharp and impatient. After a few minutes, he pulled something from the drawer, the fake trust deed, and smirked. I saw it clearly. He took out his phone, snapped pictures, then made a call. My pulse quickened. Yeah, I heard him say faintly, pacing the room. I have the paperwork ready. She's going to the bank tomorrow, so we'll finalize after that. Yes, she's fine. I'll handle her part. The audacity, the calmness, he wasn't even nervous. He was planning to pretend to be my representative. I clenched the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. Part of me wanted to storm in and confront him right there. But another part, the colder, wiser part, told me to wait. Let him think he's winning. Let him think I'm weak. Because the only thing more painful than being betrayed is letting the betrayer believe he's in control. I backed out of the driveway quietly and parked 2 streets away, shaking. That night I called Mr. Benson again. Change of plans, I said. I want to document everything. He hesitated. Everything? Yes, I want proof, legal proof of what he's trying to do. I'm tired of words. It's time for facts. He agreed to set up a meeting with law enforcement contacts who specialized in financial fraud cases. But before I hung up, he said softly, Margaret, are you sure you're ready for what that proof might reveal? I stared out the window at the night sky. I don't think I've ever been more ready. That night, as I sat by Maria's window again, I found myself whispering something I hadn't said aloud in years. Edward, if you're watching, give me strength. My late husband's face flickered in my memory, kind, patient, the man who built this home with me brick by brick. I closed my eyes and took a steady breath. The test had gone far beyond what I ever intended. But maybe, just maybe, this was the only way to save my son from himself. or to finally see who he truly was. I didn't sleep that night either. Every sound in Maria's cottage made me jump. Every gust of wind against the window made me think of Daniel sneaking back into the house. By morning, my nerves were steel. The line had been crossed. There was no more pretending this was a test. This was a crime. Mr. Benson met me at the cafe near the courthouse. He was an older man, calm and measured, the kind who could defuse a bomb with his tone alone. He listened as I told him about the phone call I overheard, the fake trust deed, the missing documents. When I showed him the broker's letter, he sighed deeply and rubbed his temples. "Margaret," he said quietly, "you've been incredibly smart so far, but now we need to protect you legally. Let's set a trap that gives us undeniable proof." He pulled out a small box from his briefcase, a discreet recording pen. It looked like an ordinary ballpoint, but one click would start capturing both audio and video. "You'll leave this on your desk when you meet him next," he said. "Act natural. Don't accuse him outright. Just let him talk. He admits to what he's done, we'll have him." I stared at the pen in his palm. It looked so simple, so harmless, but it had the power to destroy everything. That afternoon, I called Daniel. My voice trembled slightly, but not from fear, from the effort of sounding normal. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "can you come by tonight? I need your help with some paperwork." He paused. "Paperwork for what?" "The deed transfer," I lied smoothly. "You were right. Maybe it's time I think about downsizing." There was a short silence, then a cautious, "Sure, Mom, I'll be there." When he hung up, I exhaled slowly. The stage was set. Maria wanted to stay with me for protection, but I told her it had to look natural, just a mother and son catching up. Still, she refused to be far. "I'll stay down the street," she said firmly. "You call me the second something feels off." I nodded and hugged her. "Thank you." By 7 p.m., the house was quiet except for the ticking of the wall clock. I placed the pen on the desk beside the trust deed and turned it on. The tiny red light blinked once before vanishing active. Then I sat in the armchair, rehearsing my calm expression. When Daniel arrived, he brought a smile, that same boyish grin that once melted my heart, but now I could see right through it. "Hey, Mom," he said, setting down his jacket. "You look better." "Thank you," I replied softly. "Sit down. I wanted to go over a few things before I head to the bank tomorrow." He nodded, pulling out the chair across from me. "Sure, what things?" I slid the decoy trust paper toward him. "I need to make sure this is in order." He picked it up, pretending to skim it, but I saw his eyes flicker. His tone tightened slightly. "Yeah, this looks fine. You just need to sign here." "Sign?" I tilted my head. "I thought that part was already done." He hesitated. Yeah, but since you said you were reissuing the paperwork, it needs your fresh signature." My heart was pounding, but I smiled. "Oh, I see. Good thing you know all this." He chuckled nervously. "Well, someone's got to handle things. You know how confusing all this legal stuff can be." "Of course." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "Daniel, do you ever wonder what would happen if I actually lost everything?" He blinked. "What? If I had nothing, no house, no savings, no inheritance, would you still visit me?" He laughed awkwardly. "Mom, what kind of question is that?" "Just wondering," I said softly, eyes steady on his face. "Because lately it feels like you've only been coming around when there's paperwork involved." His smile faltered. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I whispered. "You've been calling my lawyer, asking about assets. You've been talking to brokers. Did you think I wouldn't find out?" His entire body stiffened. "Who told you that?" "Someone who saw what you were doing," I said calmly. "You tried to sell my house, Daniel." He slammed his hand on the table, voice rising. "You don't understand. I was trying to help. You said you were broke. I wanted to free up cash so you'd be okay." "Help," I repeated coldly. "By forging my signature." He froze. His eyes widened. He hadn't expected that word. I leaned forward, my tone sharpening. "How could you, Daniel? After everything your father and I worked for, after all the nights we went without just to give you a future. Stop making me the villain." He snapped, standing up. "You don't get it. You sit here in this big house with money sitting in the bank while I'm drowning in debt. You could fix it all with one signature. One." My heart broke, not just from what he said, but from how easily it came out. "You think you're entitled to what we earned," I said quietly. "You think love is a transaction." He looked away, jaw tight. "You always loved money more than me anyway." That one hit hard. I took a slow breath. "If you truly believed that, you never knew me at all." For a moment, silence filled the room, just the ticking of the clock. Then Daniel exhaled sharply, grabbed the trust paper, and stuffed it into his bag. "You know what, Mom? Forget it. I'll handle it myself. You'll thank me later." He stormed toward the door. My heart raced, but I didn't stop him. Not yet. Because every word, every threat, every confession was being recorded. When the door slammed shut, I finally let myself shake. I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to steady my breathing. The recording had worked. But when I replayed the footage later that night, something unexpected sent chills down my spine. In the background, just before he left, Daniel had made a phone call. His voice was muffled but clear enough. "Yeah, she signed. I've got it. Meet me tomorrow, she won't know a thing." He was still planning to go through with it, even after being caught. I sat there in the dark, listening to his voice echo from the tiny pen speaker, my heart breaking over and over. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't desperation. It was greed. Cold, deliberate, calculated. And that's when I realized I couldn't protect him anymore. Because the next step wouldn't be about family. It would be about justice. The next morning, the sky was gray, heavy clouds hanging low like a warning. It felt as though even the weather knew what was coming. I woke before sunrise, pacing my kitchen with a cup of coffee I barely touched. The recording pen sat on the table beside me, holding the proof that would shatter what was left of my heart. I listened to it again, over and over, his voice, his calm confidence as he told someone, "Meet me tomorrow." Tomorrow was now today. Mr. Benson arrived at 8 a.m., his face grim. "I've spoken to Detective Harris," he said, setting down his briefcase. "He's agreed to monitor the meeting if we can determine where it's happening." I nodded, my voice small. He said, "Meet me tomorrow." That means he's already arranged it, but I don't know where. Benson leaned forward. "We can find out. Did he call from his phone?" "Yes. Then we can track his movements. I'll notify the detective right now." He stepped into the hallway, phone pressed to his ear, while I stood there, staring at the pen, the little device that had captured the end of my illusions. I whispered to myself, "Please, let me do the right thing, even if it breaks me." By 9 a.m., I received a text from Daniel. "Going out for a few hours, don't wait up." I didn't reply. Instead, I handed my phone to Benson. "Trace him." He nodded, already relaying the number to the detective. Within 30 minutes, we had confirmation. Daniel's car had been spotted on the main road leading downtown. Detective Harris, a tall woman with sharp eyes and a soft voice, met us in the station parking lot. "We'll tail him quietly," she said. "You'll stay in the unmarked vehicle with me. Mr. Benson, you follow behind." It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. We drove slowly, keeping distance. I saw his car pull into a real estate office, the same one from the broker's letter. I felt my stomach twist. "That's it," I whispered. Detective Harris nodded. "We'll wait." Once he makes a move with the forged document, we intercept. Through the glass window, I saw Daniel walk in, shake hands with a man, Mr. Blake, the broker who'd warned me. The man looked uneasy, his body language hesitant. Then Daniel pulled out a folder from his bag, the fake trust deed. I clutched the edge of the seat so tightly my knuckles went white. The detective turned on the body camera. "We're going in." The moment we entered, Daniel froze. He looked up from the desk, his confident smile faltering the instant he saw me. "Mom," his voice cracked. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer. Detective Harris stepped forward, flashing her badge. "Daniel Turner, we need you to step away from the table." He looked between her, me, and Benson, his face draining of color. "Wait, what is this?" "Mr. Turner," Harris said, "you're in possession of falsified legal documents and attempting to commit property fraud. We have recorded evidence of your intent." He turned to me, eyes wild. "Mom, tell them this is a mistake. You told me to help you." "I told you nothing of the sort," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "You lied, you forged my name, you tried to sell the house your father built." "Mom, please," he begged. I needed money, I was going to fix it later," Detective Harris cut in. "You can explain at the station." 2 officers stepped forward. Daniel's panic grew desperate. "No." "Mom, you can't do this to me. I'm your son." His voice echoed in the small office, raw and pleading. I wanted to collapse. I wanted to hug him and say it would all be okay. But that would have been a lie, and I'd lived with enough lies. Tears welled in my eyes as the officers led him away. "I didn't want this, Daniel," I whispered. "You did." He looked at me one last time, anger flashing beneath the fear. "You'll regret this," he spat. "You'll lose me forever." Then he was gone. When the door closed, I finally broke down. My knees buckled and Benson caught me before I fell. "It's over," he said softly. "You did the right thing." But I didn't feel relief, only emptiness. The detective placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "He'll be questioned. Given what we have, the recording, the documents, and the broker's testimony, he'll likely face charges. But it's your call if you want to press them formally." I swallowed hard. I need time." "Of course," she said gently. "Take it." That night the house felt colder than ever. I sat at my husband's old desk, staring at the photo of Daniel as a boy missing his front teeth, holding his first baseball glove. How did we get here? Was it my fault for giving him too much, or not enough? I thought the test I'd created pretending to lose everything would show me who he truly was. But instead, it showed me who I had become, a mother forced to choose between justice and love. A week passed. Detective Harris called me again. He's not denying it, she said quietly, but he's claiming emotional distress. He says he thought he was helping you. Helping, I said bitterly. By stealing from me. I know, she sighed, but it's not uncommon. You still have the option to drop the charges before it moves forward. That night, I sat on the porch, listening to the crickets hum in the dark. Maria brought me tea and sat beside me quietly. What are you going to do? She asked softly. I didn't answer right away. He's my son, I said finally, but he's also a grown man who made choices. I just don't know if protecting him will save him or destroy him. Maria reached over and squeezed my hand. Whatever you decide, make sure it's for you, not the guilt you carry. Her words lingered long after she left. Later, when I closed my eyes, I could still hear Daniel's voice echoing. You'll regret this. You'll lose me forever. Maybe he was right, but maybe losing him was the only way to save the pieces of myself that were left. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's face, the guilt, the desperation, the lies. But beneath all that, I still saw my little boy. The one who used to run into my arms after school, who would tell me I was the best mom in the world. That image kept me from hating him completely. But forgiveness, that was still far away. The next morning, I made breakfast like usual. Bacon, eggs, toast. I wasn't even hungry, but it gave me something to do. When Daniel came downstairs, he looked pale, eyes red, hair unbrushed. Morning, I said softly. He nodded, avoiding my eyes. Morning. We ate in silence. The ticking of the old wall clock filled the room. Finally, I said, Daniel, I need you to tell me the full truth. He froze mid-bite. I did, he muttered. No, I said, keeping my voice calm. You told me what happened, but not why. You wanted the money, but why the desperation? Why betray me of all people? He put his fork down, hands trembling. I didn't mean to hurt you, Mom. I swear it was just what? He hesitated. Then finally the words came tumbling out. Sarah's pregnant. My heart dropped. What? He nodded miserably. She found out 2 months ago. She didn't want to tell you because she thought you'd judge us. I told her we'd figure it out. But then she said she wouldn't raise a kid in a tiny apartment, that she wanted a better life. She said if I really loved her, I'd make it happen. So you thought stealing from me was the answer? I whispered. Tears filled his eyes. I didn't steal. I was going to borrow. You were going to leave it to me eventually. I just needed it sooner. My chest ached. Daniel, that's not how love works, or family, or trust. He buried his face in his hands. I know, Mom, I know. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of his words crushed the silence. Pregnant, a grandchild. My heart was torn between anger and sorrow, then something else clicked in my mind. 2 months ago, that was exactly when the fake account had started withdrawing money from my charity fund. And the digital trail didn't lead just to Daniel's laptop. It also connected to another IP address. I had assumed it was a hacker, but now I had a sinking feeling it was. Daniel, I said slowly. Where's Sarah now? He looked up, startled. At her sister's, I think. Why? I stood, my heart pounding. Because I need to talk to her. He frowned. Mom, please don't. She doesn't want to see you right now. I gave him a long, hard look. Daniel, what aren't you telling me? He shook his head quickly. Nothing, just please don't make this worse. But it was too late. The tone in his voice told me everything. He was hiding something, again, and I was done being in the dark. Later that afternoon, I drove to the address I found through some careful searching. Sarah's sister lived in a modest 2-story house on the other side of town. I parked across the street and waited. After a few minutes, Sarah stepped outside, her belly barely showing, a phone pressed to her ear. She looked around nervously. Then a sleek black car pulled up, and the man who stepped out was Daniel. He was older, maybe mid-30s, wearing an expensive suit and a smug smile. He leaned in, kissed her on the cheek, and handed her a small bag, the kind of bag that looked heavy with cash. My breath caught. I grabbed my phone and snapped a photo. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. Was this what Daniel had gotten into? Had she used him to steal from me to feed her own schemes? When the man drove off, I started my car and followed her. She didn't go home. Instead, she drove to a downtown office building, the one where the fake charity account had first transferred money to. My mind was spinning. Sarah wasn't just part of it. She might have been behind it. I texted Daniel, we need to talk. Now, about Sarah, no reply. Then a few minutes later, Daniel, please, Mom, don't do anything stupid. You don't understand. Oh, I understood more than he thought. I went home, printed the photo I'd taken, and laid it on the table when he got back that evening. His eyes widened the second he saw it. Where did you get that? I followed her, I said flatly. Who is that man, Daniel? He swallowed hard. Her boss. Her boss, I said bitterly. That's funny, because her boss was the one receiving the transfers from my account. Did you know that? Daniel's face went pale. No, that can't be true. Stop lying to me, I snapped. You've already done enough damage. He backed away, tears streaming down his face. I swear I didn't know. She told me it was just an investment thing, that she'd double it and we could move somewhere new. Oh my God, Daniel, I whispered, sinking into a chair. She's been playing both of us. He ran a hand through his hair, shaking his head. No, she would. But even as he said it, doubt crept into his voice. The realization hit him and it broke him. I have to talk to her, he muttered, heading for the door. Daniel, wait, I called out. You're not thinking clearly. He didn't listen. The door slammed. I sank back into the chair, tears blurring my vision. I didn't know whether to chase him or let him face the truth himself. But one thing was certain, the storm had only just begun. What would you do if your own child got caught up in something like this? Would you step in to save him or let him face the fallout? Comment below. I really want to hear what you'd do in my shoes. The storm outside that night felt like a reflection of what was happening inside me. Lightning flashed through the window as I paced back and forth, staring at my phone. No messages, no calls, nothing from Daniel. Every few minutes, I'd check again, my heart pounding harder each time. I knew where he was with Sarah, and if what I'd just uncovered was true, he was walking straight into a trap. Finally, unable to take it anymore, I grabbed my keys and drove. The rain came down in sheets, blurring the streetlights, the windshield wipers struggling to keep up. My mind was racing with every possibility: confrontation, betrayal, maybe even something worse. When I pulled up near Sarah's apartment, I saw Daniel's car parked out front. The lights inside were on. Shadows moved behind the curtains. I could hear raised voices, muffled but sharp. I took a deep breath and got out of the car. As I climbed the steps to her door, I heard the sound of something breaking, followed by a shout. I didn't hesitate. I pushed the door open. Daniel, he turned, startled. Sarah was standing across the room, her face red, mascara streaking down her cheeks. A glass lay shattered on the floor. What are you doing here? Daniel shouted, his voice breaking. I could ask you the same thing, I said, my tone cold but trembling. What's going on? Sarah glared at me. You just can't stay out of it, can you? Excuse me, I said, stepping closer. You've been manipulating my son, stealing money and stealing, she scoffed. You think I needed to steal from you? Please, that money was practically charity, just sitting there waiting to be used. Daniel turned to her, horrified. Sarah, what are you talking about? She crossed her arms, her voice icy. You really think I loved you for you? You were my ticket out. You were supposed to convince your mother to invest in my business. But she wanted to play smart, so I had to get creative. Daniel's face drained of color. You used me, she smiled cruelly. Welcome to the real world, sweetheart. I felt my heart twist. My poor son, so naive, so desperate to be loved, and she'd torn him apart from the inside out. Sarah, I said quietly, you don't realize what you've done, what you've taken. She rolled her eyes. Oh, spare me the moral lecture. You'll get your money back, eventually. Eventually, I snapped. That money wasn't for me. It was for the community center, the food drives, the families who depend on it. You didn't just take from me, you took from them. Her smirk faltered for a second, just a second, but then she straightened. Then maybe they should have found better donors. Before I could speak, Daniel lunged forward, grabbing the edge of the table, his voice shaking with anger. You said we'd build a future together. That we'd raise our baby in a better place. Sarah's face softened just enough to twist the knife deeper. Oh, Daniel, I'm sorry, but there is no baby. The words hung in the air like thunder. I froze. Daniel blinked in disbelief. What do you mean? I made it up, she said simply, shrugging. You were getting cold feet. I had to make sure you stayed. It worked for a while. Daniel stumbled back as if she'd hit him. You lied about everything. Sarah tilted her head. Not everything. I did like the way you looked at me, like I was worth something. He stood there, breathing hard, eyes glistening with betrayal. Then he whispered, You're evil. She smirked again. No, I'm just practical. That was it. I stepped between them. Daniel, we're leaving now. He didn't move. His fists were clenched, his jaw trembling. I saw the rage, the heartbreak, everything colliding inside him. Then suddenly he laughed, a broken, bitter laugh. You know what, Mom? Maybe this is my fault. I thought I could build something out of lies and shortcuts. Maybe I deserve this. I grabbed his arm. No, you don't. You made mistakes, yes, but you still have a choice. You can stop letting people like her define you. Sarah snorted. Oh, please, he's already ruined his life. You both have. That's when I saw it, a small black briefcase sitting near her desk. The same one the man from yesterday had handed her. Without a word, I walked over, picked it up, and opened it. Stacks of cash. And on top, documents. Account details, transaction records, evidence. Sarah's eyes widened. Put that down. I looked up slowly. This is evidence. I pulled out my phone and started recording. You just confessed to fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement, all while my son stood right here. Her face went pale. You can't. Try me. For a moment, no one spoke, just the rain pounding outside and the low hum of the refrigerator in the corner. Then Daniel whispered, Mom, let's go. I nodded. I walked to the door, still holding my phone. Before I left, I turned to Sarah one last time. You wanted to steal a life that wasn't yours, but karma always collects her debt and she's already knocking. We left her there, shaking, furious, screaming threats I barely heard. When we got into the car, Daniel finally broke down. He sobbed, the kind of deep, ugly crying that comes when every wall you've built finally crumbles. I ruined everything, he choked out. I hurt you, Mom. I fell for her lies. I almost destroyed everything you worked for. I held his hand. You made mistakes, but you're here now. That's what matters. He looked at me through red eyes. How can you still say that after everything? I smiled sadly. Because you're still my son, and I still believe people can change. He leaned back, silent, as we drove through the rain, heading home toward something that might resemble healing. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over yet, because exposing Sarah would come with consequences. And as I'd soon learn in Part 9, karma doesn't just visit quietly, it sometimes arrives with flashing lights and sirens. Speech balloon, what do you think? Would you forgive Daniel after what he did? Or would you let him face the full punishment? Comment below. I want to know how you'd handle this as a parent. The next morning, the sun rose pale and cold, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Daniel was still asleep on the couch, curled under a blanket like a boy again. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the half-burnt toast in the toaster, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. I'd spent half the night replaying it, Sarah's smirk, the briefcase full of cash, the moment my son broke down. And now there was only one thing left to do. I called Detective Ramirez, the same officer who'd handled my report weeks earlier when I'd first noticed the strange transactions. I told him everything, the confrontation, the confession, the evidence. He listened quietly, then said, Mrs. Green, this is serious. We'll need that footage and the documents. Can you bring them in? Yes, I said, glancing at Daniel. But I need you to go easy on my son. He was manipulated. Ramirez's tone softened. I can't promise what the DA will decide, but I'll note that in the report. I hung up and sat down. My hands were trembling again, but this time it wasn't fear, it was release. The kind of trembling that comes after carrying too much for too long. When Daniel woke up, his eyes were swollen, his voice raw. What's going to happen now? I handed him a cup of coffee. That depends on what we do next. I'm turning everything over to the police. He nodded slowly. And me? You'll tell them the truth, I said gently. All of it. He looked down. Mom. If they arrest me, then you'll face it, I said softly but firmly. Running from it won't fix anything. He swallowed hard, then nodded again. There was a quiet courage in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. Maybe for the first time he was ready to grow up. We drove to the station together. Neither of us spoke much. The world outside the car window seemed too bright, too loud. Detective Ramirez met us in his small office. He was kind but professional. Took the files, the video recording, and the briefcase, carefully labeling everything. When Daniel explained his side, how Sarah had pressured him, how he'd thought it was just an early inheritance, how he didn't know about the laundering, Ramirez listened carefully. At the end, the detective sighed. It's messy but clear. She's the primary suspect. We'll issue a warrant. He turned to me. Mrs. Green, you might be called to testify. Are you ready for that? I hesitated. My heart ached at the thought. But then I nodded. Yes, I am. As we left the station, Daniel whispered, I don't deserve you. I squeezed his hand. Maybe not before, but you're trying now. That's what matters. That evening, we sat quietly in the living room. I made pasta, the same simple dinner we used to eat on Fridays when he was a teenager. It felt symbolic, ordinary, grounding. Halfway through, there was a knock on the door. 2 officers stood there with calm but serious expressions. Mrs. Green, one of them said. We just wanted to inform you Sarah Coleman has been arrested. She's in custody. I felt something inside me loosen, a pressure I hadn't realized was still there. Thank you, I said quietly. They nodded and left. Daniel stood frozen. She's really gone, I nodded. It's over. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't truly over. Not for him, not for me, not yet. A few days later, we received a letter from the DA's office. Daniel had been cleared of major charges, but he'd still need to do community service and attend financial restitution counseling. It was mercy, really, and he knew it. He didn't complain, not once. In fact, he started volunteering at the same community center I'd founded years ago, the one Sarah's theft had nearly destroyed. The first day he walked in there, the staff looked uneasy, some even angry when they recognized him. But Daniel didn't flinch. He just said, "I'm here to help." I stood outside the door watching him mop the floors, fix tables, carry boxes. Slowly, the tension melted. One of the women even offered him lemonade by the end of the day. He smiled for the first time in weeks. And for the first time, I saw something real behind that smile: humility. Growth. A few weeks later, I received a court notice. I was to testify at Sarah's hearing. When I walked into that courtroom, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked smaller, her hair unkempt, her arrogance gone. When our eyes met, something flickered there. Shame, anger, maybe both. Her lawyer tried to paint her as desperate, a victim of circumstance. But the evidence was undeniable: the bank transfers, her confession on camera, the fake pregnancy. When it was my turn to speak, I told the truth. "I'm not here for revenge," I said, my voice steady. "I'm here because lies have consequences, because greed destroys families. But I also believe people can change if they're willing to face what they've done." For a moment, the courtroom was silent. Sarah didn't look at me, but Daniel did. His eyes were full of tears. That day, she was sentenced to 5 years in prison with probation afterward. When the gavel fell, I felt something deep inside me release, like a knot untangling. Life after that wasn't perfect, but it was real. Daniel and I started rebuilding, one small piece at a time. Got a part-time job at the local hardware store, took evening classes in business ethics, and helped organize fundraisers to replenish the charity's stolen funds. And slowly, the community began to trust him again. One evening, months later, we were sitting on the porch watching the sunset. The air smelled like rain and fresh-cut grass. Daniel broke the silence. "You know, when you said you lost everything, I thought you meant money, but now I get it." I smiled faintly. "What do you think I meant?" He looked out toward the horizon. "You meant me, you lost me, and somehow you found me again." Tears welled up in my eyes. "I never really lost you, Daniel. I was just waiting for you to come home." He nodded, his voice cracking. "Thank you for not giving up on me." We sat there quietly as the sun dipped below the trees, painting the world in soft gold. For the first time in a long time, it felt peaceful. And just before the light faded, Daniel turned to me and said, "Mom, I don't want your inheritance anymore." I laughed softly. "Good, because I already spent it." He looked shocked until I smiled. "On you," he chuckled, shaking his head. "Figures." We both laughed, really laughed, not out of relief or irony this time, but out of something purer, something like hope. Weeks later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Sarah. Her handwriting was messy, desperate. "Mrs. Green, you were right. I don't know what I was chasing. Maybe I thought if I hurt others first, I wouldn't feel so small. I'm sorry for everything. If you ever see Daniel, tell him I hope he never becomes like me." I folded the letter quietly, feeling an unexpected wave of sadness. Maybe, in her own broken way, Sarah had finally met her karma and learned from it. That night, I sat by the window, the same one where I'd once watched the rain and feared I'd lost my son forever. But now, the house felt different, warmer, alive. I whispered to myself, maybe losing everything was what I needed to realize what really matters. And for the first time in years, I believed it. Speech balloon, so tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Would you forgive your child after something like this, or walk away? Comment below. I read every single one. And remember, sometimes losing everything is how we find what's truly worth keeping.